Grim here, and today we're going to talk a little bit about battery safety. The reason why we're going to talk about battery safety is because I believe that it's a very important issue. If you don't know your batteries, you can cause yourself some serious harm. There are a lot of different kinds of batteries out there. There's some really good ones, and then there's some really bad ones. One thing we're going to talk about today is we're going to try and talk about the amperage. If you know your amperage, more than likely you're going to end up okay. However, there's some out there that are new to the whole thing, and because they're new, they don't know their amps, they don't know the batteries. I myself like to use the LG 18650. It's a 35 amp, allows me to go down to probably about 0.15. I go into a lot of different kinds of shops, and usually when I go in there, at least once, somebody in there is at the counter and they say, "I'm new and I want to do some sub-ohm vaping." That's great. I love that there's new people out there trying to get into this whole sub-ohm thing and trying to chase clouds. I think it's excellent. It's a lot of fun, and I think that anybody should be doing it, whether you're an ex-smoker or you're just someone who's looking for a hobby. Now, I've been into a lot of different shops in my local area, and every time I go in there, at least once when I go, there's somebody there and they say that they want to get into sub-ohm vaping and they're looking for everything. Now, the guy behind the counter sees this as pretty much a sale. He doesn't really try to inform the person about battery safety and the dangers of not knowing what your battery can take and handle. Knowing your battery is extremely important. In fact, it's probably the most important thing you should know about sub-ohm vaping, especially when it comes to a mechanical mod such as this. Without knowing that kind of information on what kind of amps, and you should really know how low you want to go. If you plan on going down to, say, 0.3, you need at least a 30 amp battery, because you're going to be pushing about 18.5 amps. If you go lower than that, obviously you're going to be pushing more amps. Now, if you're not very good with math or Ohm's law, there's actually a really good application on most mobile devices that will inform you of exactly what type of battery you need and what kind of amperage you're going to be pushing, so that you know that you get the safest battery on the market. If you're like me and you like to run a mechanical mod, then you definitely want to know exactly what kind of battery that you need, because it's an unregulated device, which means it doesn't have any kind of safety features to it. There's no computer chips or anything like that that will cut off if, say, the battery were getting a little too warm. The minimum amps that you probably should have on your battery is about 30 amps. If you go any lower than that, you're probably going to be pushing the limits of most of your sub-ohm builds. I personally like to go with the 35 amps LGs. They're the best ones that I've seen out there so far. There's others, there's 40 amps, and then there's 30 amps. Now, something that can go wrong is a little something called battery venting. It's usually when the battery gets a little too warm, or you're putting too much power and resistance to the battery, which causes it to kind of smoke or even catch fire. Now, if that happens and you've got it real close to your face, what do you think is going to happen? You're going to burn yourself, and it could actually build up a pressure inside the tube and actually make it explode. Now, this here only has these two little holes on the bottom, which really doesn't allow for a whole lot of venting in case something were to go wrong with my battery. But because I know my battery, I actually don't think will have a problem at all. There's some devices that don't even have any holes. They have no venting holes. I have another device. It has large holes right at the bottom near the magnetic button. Basically, if you plan on sub-ohm vaping, make sure that you have the proper amperage for your batteries. If you really want to go super low, you need to have a high amperage battery. If you only plan on doing just a little bit below 1 ohm, say around 0.8, possibly 7, 6, or even 5, then you may only need to top out at about a 30 amp battery. But anything below 5, you want to try and get a 35 amp battery, because if you go any lower than that and you only have a 30 amp battery, you're actually going to be pushing the limits of your battery, and you don't really want to do that. You want to try and give yourself as much safety room as possible when it comes to your batteries and your amperage and the amount of resistance that you're putting through your coils. I'm Grim, this is Grim Vapor, and I want you guys to be safe, be vape, and be vape happy.